Hello, friends. Assalamu alaikum and welcome. Some truly strange and mysterious events have occurred in our world that just leave us absolutely stunned. Throughout history, we've seen incidents take place that no one, and I mean no one, has been able to fully understand, even to this day. Our science and technology have advanced so incredibly much, right? Yet some events still remain entirely beyond our comprehension. Today, we're looking at one of the most baffling phenomena of all: massive airplanes suddenly vanishing into thin air. History has actually seen several bizarre incidents where planes completely disappeared into the sky, never to be found again. In this explainer, I'm going to tell you about a few of these missing aircraft, and honestly, you're sure to be amazed hearing about them. So, how exactly does a massive airplane just vanish? Well, let's dive into this and examine three seriously baffling cases that push the boundaries of what we understand about the vast, unconquered skies above us. It really forces us to ask that profound question. Because think about it. We have satellites, radar, global communication networks, yet the sky still holds on to its secrets. We're going to look at three distinct events today. Some are modern tragedies, others are deeply strange historical anomalies, and one shows the raw, unforgiving power of nature. Okay, we'll start with our first case. It's a relatable and deeply shocking modern tragedy that began in March of 2014. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 was on a routine flight, traveling from Malaysia to China when it simply vanished. This is a story most of us probably remember unfolding live on the news, and it stands as one of the most shocking events in all of aviation history. There were a staggering 239 passengers aboard this aircraft. Now, according to investigators who looked into the disappearance, they believe the plane ultimately crashed at an extremely high speed. But the lingering, agonizing questions of how, when, and exactly where this happened, those have never been determined. To this day, literally no one has been able to pinpoint the answers. And you have to understand, the sheer unprecedented scale of this search operation was staggering. We're talking about 3 years of continuous searching. At one point, there were 15 different countries involved all at the exact same time. It became the single most expensive search in human history. Yet, despite finding some debris that kind of resembled parts of the plane, it could never be confirmed with absolute certainty that those pieces actually belonged to this specific aircraft. And most heartbreakingly, not a single passenger's body was ever recovered. Despite everything modern science threw at this mystery, no solid evidence was found, and nothing definitive has ever been established. Right, let's move on to our second case. We're transitioning here from the hard data of modern radar to a truly mind-bending historical anomaly. Now, real quick before we get into this one, let me mention that this incident was widely reported in newspapers of that time and was discussed for quite a while, so I'm only sharing what the media reported. I'm definitely not making anything up myself, and you can absolutely search the internet about this fascinating incident too. So, the story begins back in 1955. A chartered DC-4 aircraft known as Flight 914 takes off from New York carrying 57 passengers bound for Miami. But during its journey, it completely disappears from radar. Because technology in 1955 wasn't all that advanced, searches were super limited, and authorities eventually just concluded it had crashed into the ocean. The world basically forgot about this plane for 37 years. But then, on March 22, 1992, something happened that's still incredibly hard to believe. The plane seemingly reappeared in the skies, contacting the control tower at Carrizal Airport in Venezuela. Picture this. It's that evening in 1992, and an air traffic controller is just doing his normal job when a pilot suddenly contacts him over the radio. When the controller asks for details, the pilot doesn't answer with standard aviation protocol. Instead, his very first question is simply, "Where are we?" It's even said that audio recordings of this conversation exist, capturing the clear, undeniable fear in the pilot's voice. The frightened pilot identified his aircraft as Charter Flight 914, with 57 passengers aboard, heading from New York to Miami. Now, obviously, this aircraft was nowhere near its intended destination. I mean, Miami was a full 1,800 kilometers away from Carazal. The controller sitting in the room was utterly stunned. This incredibly old aircraft had drifted terribly off course, creating a highly dangerous situation. A rogue plane in the wrong airspace could not only crash itself, but could easily cause a catastrophic collision with another aircraft. The controller frantically told the pilot, "This is Carazal, Venezuela, and you've drifted off your route." But for 5 agonizing minutes, no response came. Finally, the pilot broke the silence, asking if he could land. To avoid a total disaster, the controller immediately cleared the runway. And what happened next plays out literally like a cinematic thriller. The people in the control room watched in pure astonishment as a very old aircraft, unlike anything they were used to seeing in 1992, descended and touched down. Over the radio, voices could be heard inside the cockpit. 2 pilots were talking to each other asking, "What is this?" One pilot then relayed to the tower that they had come from New York and were supposed to land in Miami at 9:55 p.m. on August 12, 1955. The controller, in total shock, replied, "What are you talking about? This is 1992. And over the radio, the pilot just screamed back, "Oh my God." The control room urged the pilots not to panic and quickly dispatched a ground crew to assist them. But as the ground crew rushed toward the landed plane and approached the cockpit, things escalated fast. The pilot yelled, "No, stay away from us. We're leaving right now." According to the crew's reports, the passengers and the pilot appeared extremely distressed and frightened. The pilot frantically waved them off with his hand, visibly shaken. And during this panic, the pilot actually dropped a calendar out of the window. A ground crew member picked it up and, just as reported in the media, it was dated 1955. Immediately after, the plane abruptly took off again and was never seen again. Now, as I mentioned earlier, how true this story is, I can't say for sure, but it was heavily documented in newspapers of the time, complete with eyewitness accounts from the controllers and ground crew. And I think that brilliantly illustrates just how bizarre historical media reports can be, really blurring the lines of what we think is possible. But now we're going to pivot from the anomalous back to the brutally realistic power of nature, with the disappearance of PIA Flight 404. On the morning of August 25, 1979, a PIA Fokker F-27 aircraft took off for what should have been a completely standard domestic flight in Pakistan. It was traveling from Gilgit to Islamabad, carrying 49 passengers and 5 crew members. Interestingly enough, they were flying over a route already known for being pretty treacherous, because another PIA aircraft had recently crashed in that very same region. The flight took off right around 7:30 a.m., but just 4 short minutes later, at 7:34 a.m., the pilots made their routine contact with the control tower. You know, this is just a standard check-in that every pilot makes shortly after getting airborne. But tragically, this routine check-in turned out to be the pilot's final contact with the rest of the world. Right after that transmission, the plane vanished from the radar entirely. The Pakistan Army launched a massive and highly dedicated search effort to find the missing aircraft and its passengers. They focused their efforts around Nanga Parbat, which is one of the world's tallest mountains in the Himalayas. It is a region of towering snow-capped peaks and totally unforgiving, impenetrable terrain. And despite the immense efforts of the search teams, the massive scale of the Himalayas completely swallowed the aircraft whole. Not a single piece of the plane was ever found. It's widely believed that the plane crashed somewhere deep among those towering icy peaks, leaving absolutely no trace behind. So, as we wrap up this explainer, these 3 baffling disappearances really leave us dwelling on a profound reality. Whether it's the modern, highly investigated enigma of MH370, the incredibly strange media accounts of Flight 914, or the tragic reality of PIA Flight 404 being swallowed by the Himalayas, they all point to the limits of human technology. We like to think we have the whole world mapped and monitored, but clearly the sky still holds profound mysteries. It leaves us with one final, haunting thought to ponder today. Will the vast, unconquered skies ever truly reveal their deepest secrets to us? Or are some planes just destined to fly forever in the realm of the unknown? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning what you think you know.